Hello and welcome to another Avid Visions video. Today's video will be on macro photography, about the equipment that you need for macro photography, and how to take macro photographs. Hello, I'm Roman and this is Connor here, and this is all of our equipment for macro photography, and we're just going to go over it briefly to show you what we use for our photographs.
It's a wide variety of lenses, lighting systems, and cameras, so hopefully you will be more informed if you're a buyer after watching this video.
Okay, so I'll go through my equipment first. I use a Canon EOS 60D with the 100mm non-L series macro lens, which has an ultrasonic motor, so it's really quiet and bugs won't be scared away by it. This is my set of bellows that I use for any photograph that I want a higher reproduction ratio on because it gets your lens closer to the picture. These were $40, so they're pretty affordable.
This is the D300S, which I primarily use for my macro photography. I use a few different lenses. One of them is on here right now. It's a 50mm prime lens, which is normally used in portraiture, but with the right combination of extension tubes, it can be a powerful macro asset. Other things that I use: Photodiox extension tubes, $10, no electrical parts, very cheap, not my favorite. Kenko extension tubes, a bit pricier at around the $150 to even $200 range nowadays, but they really get the job done well. This is the Nikon 60mm micro lens that can get me up to a 1:1 reproduction ratio. It's a dedicated macro lens. And then I have a few different lighting systems. I use these LED flash rings, which are currently out of batteries, it would appear, and this Nikon SP700 speed light. I've also used the D60 in the past, so you obviously do not need a semi-professional level camera, and this can be done with very entry-level equipment.
I also use a flash, but I have a generic flash. This is called the DSLR 300. It has 3 shooting modes with a chart on the back to help you decide what powered flash you need for your exposure, and this was around $60, and with the wireless transmitters you can get a decent flash for about $80. And this, Connor forgot to mention, is this GorillaPod. It is a tripod that can bend in separate ways, so you can sort of like bend it and wrap it around something. Has a level, so you can see if your picture is level.
Also,
and it's very useful.
It's not the biggest tripod ever, which is nice in macro photography because most full-size tripods can't get you close enough to the ground or most of the subjects that you'll be photographing. So it's always nice to have a nice compact tripod just for general photography and especially for macro photography where you need to get really close to small objects. Alright, we're going to start off with some basic information for how to shoot macro photography. First off, you want to find something that would look interesting very, very close up. For example, the underside of mushrooms can be interesting, or any just variety of some wild flowers. Just be careful not to break them, obviously. One tip that you should know right away before you start anything else on macro photography is you always want to try to focus your lens before you go in for a shot, then move your camera back and forth and compose your image around that focal point. If you're unhappy, adjust the focal ring and try again. So, let's see what we can get from these mushrooms. As always, if you need more lighting, use your flash. I'm going to try to do this shot naturally though. Again, if your focus isn't correct or you're not happy with the exposure, feel free to try again. Okay, so you just came across this frog over here, and we're going to see if we can't get a picture of it. This is another thing to know about macro photography. You got to be careful and really sneak up on a lot of your subjects because they really don't like cameras getting close into their face. There's an old adage with macro photography that you should sort of let the things come to you instead of you trying to go to them, because it almost never works, especially for insects. Also, try not to get your shadow covering the subject that you're photographing, because that will normally startle them, as most animals detect changes in lighting. Slowly approach whatever subject you're going for. Make sure your lighting is proper. Try to get it high of an f-stop as possible. Something personally that I go for is to always make sure the eye of the subject is in focus, because that's a very glaring mistake if it's not properly focused. The next important thing about macro photography, other than focusing, is getting all of your picture, or as much of your picture as desired, in focus. The larger you have your aperture number, that is like higher numbers next to the f, such as like 8 and above, the more you can get in focus in your picture. This is called the depth of field. The smaller the aperture, the higher the number, the larger the depth of field will be.
Show you how hard it is to focus. Right now I'm actually taking a video of what you would be looking at through the viewfinder if you're taking this picture of the ant. The flower is moving because it's a little bit windy right now, and my hands are shaking. It's a really small jumping spider. It just hid behind this flower. I'm kind of mad that I scared it away. Lower the exposure to get the detail on the flower. But let's see if I can show you this spider. Oh, there it is. Unfortunately, it's impossible to focus. Oh, God. One difference you may notice between Connor's and his lens and mine, is that I'm using 100mm and he's using a 60mm. And the advantage with the 100mm is the working distance is increased because you're actually focused out, but you're still at a 1:1 reproduction ratio. So you're less likely to scare any of the bugs away. But if you're not planning on doing any insect photography, then I would just go for the 60mm because they are slightly cheaper. I'm gonna go look for some insects right now, actually. In this grass over here. I'm hoping to find an ant, but they are pretty tough to find. And oftentimes you can find bugs hidden in the center, like right here I found some. In the center of a dandelion. Here are a couple of tips for insect macro photography. Don't make any sudden movements, and if you're trying to get an insect that's flying, if you happen to capture it and you have a cooler with you, you can actually put it in the cooler for a couple of seconds and cool its wings so it won't fly. It won't harm the insect, it'll just prevent it from flying away. But catching one in the first place is pretty tough. And if you're trying to learn ants or any land insects, it's helpful to have a cup of sugar water with you. That way you can stage your shot and just put down the sugar water, and a lot of the times insects will just come in and start drinking it. I found a stink bug once. He He was on a toothpick over the sugar water because I made a little bridge, and he fell in. It also turns out if they get wet that they don't like to move either. So if you feel like partially drowning your insects without killing them, you can do that too.